The phone in my hotel room rang at 3 a.m. When I answered, the front desk clerk whispered, "Leave your room now. Don't ask questions." I hung up, annoyed, and rolled back onto my pillow, thinking he had the wrong person. 5 minutes later, a woman screamed in the hallway, and something inside me snapped awake. That was the moment I realized this night was not normal. My name is Ava Rennick, and I was hours away from discovering how close I came to real danger. My brother Jonas had joked earlier that I worry too much when I travel. Tonight proved he had more reason to worry than either of us knew. Before we start, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I had checked into the Harbor Crest Hotel earlier that evening after a long day at a work conference. I was exhausted, the kind of exhaustion that makes your body feel heavy and your thoughts slow. I remember dragging my suitcase down the hallway, wanting nothing more than a hot shower and a quiet room. My job in marketing had been pushing me hard for months. Travel, deadlines, late nights, repeat. I kept telling myself I was fine, but inside I knew I was running on fumes. That is probably why I ignored a few things that should have bothered me. The hallway felt strangely empty when I arrived. A housekeeping cart was left near the elevator with no one around. I noticed a man wearing a hooded jacket walk past me earlier in the lobby. Even though it was warm inside, he never looked up, just kept his head down as if he didn't want to be recognized. I brushed it off. I was tired and ready to sleep. After settling into my room, I called my brother Jonas. He always checks on me when I travel. "Don't fall asleep with the TV on again," he said. I rolled my eyes even though he couldn't see me. "I'll try, no promises." "Seriously, Ava, lock your door twice. I mean it." "I will," I told him. Right after, my mother Ria called. She worries every time I leave town. "Are you safe? Is the room clean? Did you check the locks?" "Mom, yes, I'm fine," I said, trying not to laugh. "You better be. I won't sleep unless I know you're okay." "I promise, I'm okay." I changed into sleep clothes, turned on the bathroom vent for some white noise, and lay down. The air conditioner hummed softly. The sheets smelled like detergent. Everything felt normal and peaceful. As I started drifting off, one thought crossed my mind. I had ignored that odd feeling in the hallway, the abandoned cart, the hooded man. I told myself I was imagining things because I was overtired. I wish I had listened to that feeling sooner. When the phone rang hours later, shaking me out of sleep, I had no idea that quiet room was about to turn into the center of one of the most frightening nights of my life. I woke up to the sound of the hotel room phone ringing again and again, sharp and loud in the darkness. My heart jumped because I never get calls at that hour. The clock on the nightstand showed 3 a.m. I reached for the phone, still half asleep, and pressed it to my ear. A voice I didn't recognize spoke fast and quiet, like someone trying not to be overheard. He said, "Ma'am, you need to leave your room right now. Take your key and walk out. Do not ask any questions." His tone had none of the usual politeness you hear from hotel staff. It sounded urgent and strained, almost scared. I felt irritation bubble up because it made no sense and I was too tired to deal with confusion. I said, "I think you have the wrong room." And before he could answer, I hung up. I flopped back onto the bed, annoyed that someone thought waking a guest at 3 a.m. was okay. I pulled the blanket up and closed my eyes, trying to settle back into sleep, but something in his voice stuck with me. It had been too serious, too direct. I told myself it was probably a mistake or some emergency drill I wasn't supposed to be part of, but the thought refused to settle. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. When I grabbed it, I saw a text from Jonas, sent only moments before. It said, "You awake? Had a bad feeling. Just checking on you." That message pulled me fully out of my sleepy fog. Jonas never texts me in the middle of the night unless something is wrong. I sat up in bed and stared at the screen. I typed back, "Why are you awake?" "I'm fine, just tired." I waited for his reply, and when it didn't come right away, the room felt heavier and still. The quiet felt different now, like the air had tightened. I held the phone in my lap and brushed my hair behind my ear, listening for any noise that could tell me the call had been real or dangerous. I told myself to relax, but my breathing had already changed. I could feel it in my chest. Then it happened. A scream erupted from the hallway, sharp and terrified. It wasn't the kind of scream someone makes as a joke or from excitement. It was a raw cry for help. My body locked up, and I held my breath without meaning to. The scream faded into a burst of panicked voices, and then a heavy thud sounded against a wall. The fear hit me so fast that my hands shook. I slid off the bed and walked toward the door, moving slowly because I didn't want to make any noise. I looked through the peephole, but the hallway was empty. The scream had come from somewhere close, maybe 1 or 2 rooms away. I stepped back, grabbing my phone again, and tried calling the front desk. It rang once, then twice, then stopped. No one answered. The silence afterward felt wrong. I texted Jonas again. Someone screamed outside my room. Something isn't right. He replied within seconds. Ava, get out of there. Do not stay in that room. Leave now. His message pushed the tension in my chest into something heavier. I walked to my suitcase and yanked out a pair of jeans and a hoodie, pulling them on fast. I shoved my phone charger, wallet, and ID into my backpack with shaky hands. I didn't pack anything else because the clerk's warning echoed in my head. The scream made it real. I kept wondering what could be happening that the hotel didn't want guests to know. I wanted to call my mom, but stopped myself because she would panic without being able to help me. I needed to keep my head clear. I moved slowly toward the door and pressed my eye to the peephole again. This time, I saw a woman limping down the hallway, clutching her shoulder. Her face was wet with tears, and she looked terrified. Behind her, a hotel security guard rushed in her direction while speaking urgently into a radio. Another staff member stepped out of a doorway with wide, tense eyes. I could not hear what they were saying, but I could see fear on their faces. The sight pulled every ounce of denial out of me. Something very dangerous was happening, and I was still standing in the middle of it. I backed away from the door as another loud noise echoed down the hall, like someone pushing against a door with force. My heart pounded so fast I thought I might faint. I grabbed my backpack, slung it over my shoulder, and whispered to myself, "You need to go." My hands were sweating, and I wiped them on my jeans before reaching for the lock. I hesitated for just a second. My room suddenly felt like the only barrier between me and whatever was happening outside, but staying no longer felt safe. I took a deep breath, turned the lock, opened the door a small inch, and prepared myself to step into the unknown. I opened the hotel room door just enough to slip through, trying not to draw attention to myself. The hallway lights felt brighter than usual, as if they were exposing every fear running through me. I stepped into the hall with my backpack pressed against my chest and pulled the door shut behind me as quietly as I could. The woman who had limped past earlier was gone now, but I could still hear distant voices bouncing off the walls. Some sounded panicked, others sharp and firm, like commands being traded quickly. I pressed my back against my door for a moment, trying to steady my breathing. Every sound made my muscles tense. The air felt tight and charged, as if danger was moving through the building. I knew I could not stay in the hallway for long, so I forced myself to walk toward the stairwell. My legs felt stiff, but I kept moving, reminding myself that staying still would only make me an easier target if something or someone was coming. As I reached the corner, a woman in a housekeeping uniform turned sharply and almost bumped into me. Her name tag read Mariella, and her eyes were wide and full of fear. She grabbed my arm with a firm grip and said, "Go to the stairwell right now. Do not wait." The way she said it made every doubt in my mind vanish. I asked her what was happening, but she shook her head hard, like she did not want to speak any more words than necessary. Her silence scared me even more than the scream I had heard earlier. She pointed toward the stairwell door as if the faster I moved, the better chance I had of staying safe. I whispered a thank you and hurried away while she rushed in the opposite direction. When I pushed open the stairwell door, the heavy metal frame creaked louder than I wanted. Inside, the stairwell felt cold and empty. There was no one else inside, just the echo of my own steps bouncing back at me. I gripped the handrail to keep my balance. Because my legs were shaking so badly, I worried they might give out. The building felt alive with movement. I could hear quick steps from other floors and muffled voices through the cement walls. I started descending, taking the stairs two at a time, even though my knees felt weak. My phone buzzed in my hoodie pocket, and I pulled it out with trembling hands. It was Jonas calling. The second I heard his voice, my fear spilled out faster than I meant it to. I whispered, "Jonas, something is wrong here." A woman screamed. "The clerk told me to leave. Staff are running around. I do not know what is happening." He did not interrupt. When I finished, he said, "Ava, listen to me. Get outside right now. Do not stop. Do not go back for anything." His voice was steady, but I could tell he was scared. I clutched the phone tighter and said, "I am heading down the stairs. I am trying." He kept talking to me as I moved, telling me to breathe, to keep going, and to stay aware of my surroundings. On the next landing, I heard something that froze me in place. A door above me slammed open, and fast footsteps started sprinting down the stairs. The sound was so sudden and loud that my heart shot into my throat. I pressed myself against the wall, unsure if the person coming was a staff member or someone dangerous. I held my breath and waited. The footsteps grew louder, and a man's shadow appeared on the wall before I saw his face. My body tensed, ready to run, but when he reached the landing, I saw he was a hotel security guard. His expression was tight with focus, and he barely glanced at me before rushing past. He held a radio close to his mouth and said, "West Wing stairwell clear, moving to the second floor." His presence made the situation feel even more serious. If security was moving this fast, the threat had to be real and close. I continued downward, gripping the handrail as anxiety tightened every muscle in my body. The stairwell felt endless, but I forced myself to keep going, listening to Jonas breathe on the other end of the line. When I finally reached the first floor door, I paused with my hand on the handle. I pressed my ear against it but heard nothing. No voices, no running, nothing that gave me a sign of what waited on the other side. I whispered to Jonas, "I am going in," and pushed the door open slowly. The hallway was dim, with only a few emergency lights glowing. I walked forward, ready to run if I had to. The lobby was close now, and the idea of reaching it gave me a small burst of hope. I turned one more corner, and the sight ahead made me stop in my tracks. Several guests stood in the lobby, some crying, others holding their bags like they rushed out without thinking. 2 employees were trying to calm people down while speaking into their radios. Police officers were stepping through the front entrance with their flashlights raised. The sudden shift from quiet fear to full chaos told me everything. This was not a drill. This was not a mistake. Something serious had happened near my room, and I had barely escaped crossing paths with it. I walked toward the lobby with my phone still pressed to my ear as Jonas repeated, "You are almost safe. Keep going." I nodded even though he could not see me. The moment I stepped into the lobby lights, I felt a wave of relief hit me so fast it made my chest ache. I had made the choice that pulled me out of danger, but I still had no idea what the danger truly was. That truth was waiting for me only minutes ahead. The moment I stepped into the lobby, my chest tightened as if the air itself had changed. The room was full of tension, voices mixing in a confusing blend of fear and relief. Several guests stood near the front counters, some wrapped in blankets the hotel must have handed out, others still in their pajamas with worried looks on their faces. A few were crying softly, holding on to partners or family members like they were afraid to let go. A young couple sat on the floor with their backs against the wall, the woman pressing her face into her boyfriend's shoulder as she tried to steady her breathing. The sight made me realize that whatever I had escaped upstairs had affected other people in ways I still did not understand. 2 hotel employees were trying to calm the growing crowd, but their hands were shaking too, and their voices cracked with stress as they told everyone to stay together and wait for the police to give updates. The police officers who had entered the hotel moved with purpose, their flashlights sweeping across the floor and their radios buzzing with fast words I could not make out. I clutched my phone as Jonas stayed silent on the other end, waiting for me to speak. I whispered, "I am in the lobby," and he let out a long breath, telling me he was still there and would stay until I said I was safe. I scanned the room for the front desk clerk who had called me. When I finally saw him, he was standing off to the side with 2 police officers. His name tag said Liam Elroy, and he looked nothing like the calm voice I had heard at check-in earlier that evening. He looked pale and shaken, rubbing the back of his neck while speaking to the officers. When he noticed me staring, he stepped toward me and nodded as if confirming that I was the person he had tried so hard to warn. I walked closer, my voice low and shaky as I asked, "Why did you tell me to leave my room? What is happening?" He looked around first, as if trying to decide how much he should tell me in front of others, then leaned closer and spoke in a hushed, steady tone. He said the hotel's security system had alerted the staff about suspicious activity on the 4th floor, the floor my room was on. Someone had been trying to access several guest rooms with stolen master keycards. At first, the staff thought it might be a system glitch or a misplaced card, but then they saw security footage that confirmed a man had entered at least one room without permission. My heart began pounding as Liam told me the woman I had seen limping down the hallway had woken up to find a man inside her room going through her belongings. When she screamed and ran, the man chased after her until hotel security intervened. I felt sick listening to the details. Liam wiped a hand across his forehead as he continued, saying that based on the order of the rooms the man had tried to enter, mine appeared to be next. He said the system logged a failed attempt to unlock my door just minutes before he called me. A cold wave ran through me when he said that. The idea that someone had been standing on the other side of my door while I slept made my stomach twist. I whispered, "You are saying he was trying to get into my room?" Liam nodded, regret heavy in his eyes. I tightened my grip on my backpack because the thought of how close I came to waking up with a stranger standing in my room filled me with a fear I had never felt before. The police moved past us toward a side hallway leading deeper into the hotel, and one of the officers stopped to tell the staff that they found the intruder hiding near the industrial laundry area on the service level. They were taking him into custody. The officer said the man had used a stolen employee uniform earlier in the night to blend in, and had likely been watching guests come and go. Hearing this made my skin crawl, because I remembered the hooded man who kept his head down when he passed me in the lobby the evening before. I wondered if that had been him, and felt my stomach drop when I thought about how close he had walked. Liam stayed with me for a moment longer, apologizing for the fear I went through, but also relieved that I listened to his warning, even if I had hesitated at first. Jonas, still on the phone, was silent for a moment before saying, "Ava, come home, please." His voice cracked a little, and hearing that made my eyes sting with tears I had been holding back. I stepped away from the busier part of the lobby and found a quiet corner where I could breathe. My legs felt weak, and my hands shook as everything caught up to me. The officers began escorting small groups of guests outside to wait while they cleared the upper floors. The cool night air hit my face, calming me enough to think clearly for the first time since the phone rang. I looked back at the hotel and felt a deep mix of fear and gratitude. I had been minutes away from being trapped in that room with a stranger who meant harm. The scream I heard, the phone call, the rushed voices in the hallway, all of it had been pushing me toward the decision that saved me. Standing outside in the glow of police lights, I realized the danger had been real and close, and the thought of that truth stayed with me long after the night ended. When the police finally allowed us to step away from the hotel property, the early morning sky had started to lighten, hinting at sunrise. The air felt cool against my skin, and I realized I was shivering from the mix of fear, exhaustion, and leftover adrenaline. Jonas stayed on the phone until I reached the rideshare pickup spot outside the hotel. As soon as the car arrived, he said, "Text me when you get to the airport. Do not disappear on me." And I promised him I wouldn't. The driver glanced at me through the rearview mirror and asked if I was all right. I nodded, even though I knew I looked shaken and worn down. During the ride, I kept replaying every moment in my head. The knock I thought I heard earlier, the abandoned housekeeping cart, the hooded man in the lobby, the phone call I almost ignored. Each detail felt sharp now, as if my mind was organizing the pieces of a puzzle I did not want to see. When I arrived at the airport, I moved through security in a daze, gripping my bag like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. I kept looking around me, checking faces, exits, shadows. Even though I was surrounded by people and bright lights, It took hours before I felt myself truly breathe again. When I finally stepped through the front door of my mother's house later that day, she rushed toward me and wrapped me in a tight hug before I could drop my suitcase. Her relief was so strong it made my eyes water. She kept saying, "Thank God you are home." And I felt a heavy mix of comfort and guilt. I had heard her voice in my head all night, telling me to lock the door and stay alert, and I realized how easily things could have gone wrong if I had ignored the warning signs completely. She made me sit on the couch with a blanket around my shoulders while she made tea, even though I told her I was fine. But the truth was that I needed her steadiness more than I wanted to admit. Jonas came over soon after, walked straight to me, and pulled me into a hug without saying anything at first. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than usual. I knew something was off last night. I cannot explain it, but I just knew. Hearing him say that made the fear I had been holding inside break open for a moment, and I leaned against him while he squeezed my shoulder. Over the next few days, I stayed close to home. Loud noises made me jump, and sudden movements in my peripheral vision made my heart race. I kept checking the locks on the doors out of instinct. Every night before bed, I would think about the people staying in hotels across the country who had no idea what could be happening only a few doors down from them. I thought about the woman in the hallway who had run for her life and how different her story could have ended. I thought about the moment I almost ignored the front desk call that saved me. Those thoughts stayed with me, shaping something inside me that I knew I would not forget. My mother kept reminding me that fear can be useful when we listen to it. She said it warns us when we miss details our mind catches in the background. For the first time, I understood exactly what she meant. A week later, I called the hotel to speak with Liam, the clerk who had warned me. When he answered, his voice sounded tired but calmer. I thanked him for trusting his instincts and acting fast. He told me the hotel tightened their security, added more staff training, and replaced all the master keycard systems. He said the police told him that the man they caught had been doing this in different cities for months, staying under the radar by moving from hotel to hotel. That detail made my stomach twist, but it also made me appreciate how lucky I had been that someone paid attention. Before we hung up, Liam said, "You did the right thing leaving when you did," and hearing that helped settle the last knot of doubt that had been hanging in my mind. As more days passed, small things started feeling normal again. I went on walks, spent more time with my family, and slowly let myself feel safe in familiar places. But I also made a silent promise to myself that I would never ignore my instincts again. I would never brush off a strange feeling in a hallway or dismiss a warning just because I was tired or in a rush to relax. I learned that danger does not always announce itself loudly at first. Sometimes it whispers, and we have to recognize when it is calling for our attention. That night changed me, not in a dramatic way that took over my life, but in a steady, grounding way that made me more aware, more cautious, and more grateful for the people who look out for me. Now, whenever I travel, I double-check doors, pay attention to the people around me, and trust my instincts without hesitation. And every time I do, I think about how close I came to waking up to something far worse than a phone call. I think about how one choice, made in fear and uncertainty, ended up saving me. And I know that no matter where I go, the lesson from that night will stay with me forever. Thank you for listening to my story. Make sure to subscribe to my channel and comment where you are watching from.